This is the story of two little rabbits named Flora and Fauna. They were the most curious rabbits in the whole wide forest. One day they heard some strange noises coming from the other side of the river. What could it be? The little rabbits had to investigate. But first, they needed a boat. So they started collecting twigs and leaves and other natural materials they found around them. They worked for a whole week building their very own boat, and at the end, it looked so good that even a squirrel wanted to take a ride with them. When they arrived on the other side of the river, the little rabbits saw a big, beautiful castle made out of shiny crystals. It glittered in the sunlight and sparkled like 1,000 stars. They had never seen anything like it before. When they got closer, they heard singing. Oh my! Who could be living in such a beautiful place? Before they knew it, they were standing right in front of the castle doors and decided to knock and see who would come out. After a moment, the door opened and a tiny mouse came out. She had sparkly wings and was wearing a golden crown. Flora and Fauna had never seen a mouse like her before. She introduced herself as Queen Miasia and invited the rabbits inside. The interior of the castle was just as beautiful as the outside. There were ballrooms full of mice dressed up in fancy clothes, a library filled with old, wise owls, and a kitchen where cookies were being baked. Oh. The animals inside the castle were preparing for the upcoming royal ball that night. The little rabbits felt very honored when Queen Miasia asked them to stay and join the party. But they couldn't help but wonder, how did a mouse become queen of all these animals? They found the answer they were looking for when they bumped into an old, wise owl in the library. He told them the story of how Queen Miasia saved the entire enchanted forest by sacrificing her life. Many years ago, a terrible evil which cast a spell over the forest that made everyone forget about friendship and kindness. Only Queen Miasia, who was just a young mouse back then, remembered what true friendship and kindness meant. She brought everyone together and reminded them of what was important in life. The spell was broken, and Queen Miasia became the hero of the forest. The other animals elected her to be their queen because of her bravery and kindness. That's why they were having the royal ball that night to honor her. But suddenly the old owl gasped. He had just remembered something very important. According to legend, the witch's magic transferred to the one who broke the spell. This meant Queen Miasia still carried a bit of the dark magic inside her, and if she wasn't careful, it could eventually make her go bad. The only way to get rid of the remaining magic was to find the Crystal of Stars, an artifact with powerful healing magic, but no one knew where to find it. The little rabbits felt very bad for the queen, as they wanted to help her defeat the last bits of dark magic inside her. So they excused themselves from the party and went to look for the Crystal of Stars. Outside the castle, they met a family of hedgehogs. Maybe they knew something about the crystal, but when the rabbits told them what they were looking for, they burst out laughing. A crystal that heals? Only silly rabbits would believe in such a thing. Then they all started making fun of the rabbits and their quest. How dare they? The little rabbits felt very offended, but they knew the queen was depending on them, so they just ignored the hedgehogs and continued their search. A little further down the path, they encountered an old, gnarled tree. It must have seen a lot throughout its long life. So the rabbits sat down next to it and asked if it knew anything about the Crystal of Stars. The tree was very happy that young rabbits cared so much about the queen. It told them that it once saw a shooting star fall from the sky many years ago. It landed deep inside Whispering Woods. The rabbits thanked the tree and hurried off to find the crystal. But when they entered the woods, they immediately regretted it. It was dark and gloomy and scary. And after a while, they heard voices. 3 goblins were sitting on a nearby log and laughing. They made fun of the rabbits and tried to scare them away. The rabbits felt very threatened. Could this be the end of their adventure? But then Flora had an idea. She asked the goblins if they knew where the Crystal of Stars was. And to their surprise, the goblins actually knew where it was. They also knew that it was guarded by a terrible monster. But that didn't scare the rabbits. They were determined to help the queen no matter what. So the goblins led the rabbits through the woods, until they finally stopped in front of a cave. This must be the place. But just as they were about to enter, one of the goblins yelled, "Stop!" He said he was just kidding around and actually didn't want to help them. The Crystal of Stars was too valuable to share with anyone. He wanted it all for himself. The rabbits felt betrayed, but they weren't giving up now, not when the queen was counting on them. The 2 rabbits entered the cave alone. Inside it was pitch black, and the air was cold. After a while they heard chains dragging metal moans. Their worst fears were coming true. The monster was real. Suddenly, a huge, slimy hand grabbed Flora. She screamed for help and Fauna immediately charged forward. She headbutted the monster, but it didn't seem to feel anything. The monster picked up Fauna as well. Now both rabbits were trapped inside the monster's lair. Then suddenly, Fauna had an idea. She pretended to be scared and promised the monster that she would give him the crystal of stars, if he let her and her sister go. The monster agreed, and the two rabbits ran as fast as they could. Finally, they got away from the monster and looked around. The crystal of stars must be somewhere around here. Suddenly, they saw a faint light coming from behind a rock. When they moved it, they saw a small clearing. In the middle of it, there was a pedestal with a glowing crystal on top. This has to be it. As soon as the rabbits touched the crystal of stars, it shot a bright beam of light into the sky. Both rabbits felt healed and refreshed. They took the crystal with them and ran as fast as they could back to the castle. When they arrived, the royal ball was still going on. Everyone was dancing and having fun, including Queen Miasia. She was looking very sad. Had the rabbits given up on her? But then suddenly they appeared in the ballroom with the crystal of stars in their hands. Everyone cheered and sang when they heard the rabbit's story. The old owl approached them and examined the crystal. It was indeed the crystal of stars. But then he gasped again. The rabbits didn't realize that touching the crystal transferred its magic to them. They were now little rabbit heroes. At the end of the day, the little rabbits didn't want any of the powers. They just wanted to help the queen. Everyone cheered for them and thanked them for saving the forest. And from that day on, Flora and Fauna were known as the heroes of the enchanted forest. They returned to their normal lives, but sometimes they dreamed of their amazing adventures, the heroic deeds they accomplished, and the friends they made along the way. And that's why, my little ones, we should always be kind and helpful to others. You never know whose life you might change for the better. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.